And now, having undercoated the tank, it's time to move on and undercoat the rest of the bodywork. So we'll start off with this, the tail section. This is brand new and it's made in ABS, as are the side panels. So I've just scuffed it up a little bit, and to clean it up I've used white spirits followed by using one of these things. This is a U-Pol tack cloth and it looks like this out of the packet. It's a bit kind of damp, and the idea is you use it to remove any muck, any grease, any sort of little bits of dust that might be on the piece straight before you paint. So I've done that now, and the good news is, even though it's cold today, it's very calm, there's no insects around and there's no pollen or whatever, so hopefully things should go quite well. So to help things out, because it is cold, I've left this half can of primer in some hot water for a good 10 minutes. It's now nice and warm, so hopefully, fingers crossed, things should go quite well. But let's give it a go. Let's get a few hairs off there that's fallen on. Move that out of the way, and away we go. You know, this is just the first coat of many, no doubt. It is ABS, it is brand new, but I have spotted a few little flaws in the finish, which is to be expected. You know, it's not a factory piece, and it's certainly not easier to sort that out than trying to sort out a damaged, old, scratched original piece. Right, okay, so now this can go back in its hot water bath. I'll keep well away, and hopefully we'll come back in 10 minutes, do a second coat, and that should be the tail section sorted out in terms of undercoat. I've then got to do the same thing with the brand new ABS side panels and the not brand new, the used front mudguard, which I can. So now with the side panels and the tail section undercoated, I'm pretty happy with the result. I'll move on to the front mudguard. Now this is not new, this came off an old XJR 1300. And for the first time I've actually been looking at it quite carefully, and I found a problem. There's a crack right there on the mounting hole, and then the more I look, the more I find, because inside it's got a fiberglass patch. So as I look at it a bit more carefully, I can see a sort of what looks like a big crack all the way along here, where I imagine in the past that might have been broken off in a crash or whatever, and somebody's fiberglassed it back on again. So I'm not too happy about using this thing on the bike. Now that crack is already starting to propagate, so I could try and fix it, I suppose, and try and kind of manage that, but I'm not happy about using this particular mudguard on the bike. What I will do now is I'm going to sand off all this paint, because it has been repainted once before, which I didn't realise, and we'll see how bad it is. But on first inspection I think this might go in the bin, or at least go somewhere else, and I'll try and find a better version of this particular XJR 1300 front mudguard. But first let's get the paint off here and see how bad it really is. Right, so we can now see that crack which goes from here all the way down there, and you can see a crack here on the edge of the hole. So the mudguard used to be red, but I can see an awful lot of filler in this area, which is to be expected if someone's tried to repair a crack or a break. See here the fiberglass on the underside. So having discovered that, I decided this is not going to go on the bike. This can go either on the scrap heap or perhaps not, just as a spare for something else. And now I need to go and find a better version of this XJR 1300 mudguard off eBay, and hopefully I can find one in the next few weeks. And now here we are, it's the next day, and it's time for the next coat of paint. In this case it's the base metallic coarse silver. So I've just done the two side panels, they turned out pretty well, and I'm pretty much now done this tail section. And the good news is, because it's just the base layer, this doesn't have to be very thick at all. It's just going to be the colour. Don't care about how thick it is, as long as I get a good coverage and it's a nice even coat, I'm quite happy. So that's pretty much it. So with that done, I've now got to move on and do the tank and of course the front mudguard. Now I did say earlier on that I'm not happy with the front mudguard I've got, so I went off to look for another one on eBay. I was somewhat shocked to find that even rough looking front mud guards for next GR 1300 are about £75, and they look no better than the one I've got. So I kept on looking, and I found somebody making a replica front mud guard in GRP rather than ABS, which is fine by me, and that was £80 delivered. So I thought, right, I'll go for that, because at least I've got no problems worrying about it being cracked or having a damaged finish. So that's on its way. It should be here in a few days' time. When it arrives, I'll undercoat it, give it this base metallic coarse silver coat, and then we can move forward. And so here we go with the first coat of Candy Apple Blue. Now at first it will appear quite translucent, quite pale, but the more coats you add, the deeper the colour gets. And the trick is to make sure you do the same number of coats on all your panels, which isn't so easy, but we'll do our best. Oops. Oh no, I've marked it here, look. Bit of mess, see there, I've just knocked it. Not sure you can see that, that's my fault, being stupid. Let me turn that round. You see that? Not paying attention. So that'll have to be stopped. I'll move that away, and I'll just paint this panel now. I probably would have been better off just doing one at a time, but you're trying to be clever and do two at once. So let me stop for a second, and I'll get this out of the way, and then we'll carry on with this side panel. And now with this side panel, I fixed a problem that I caused by touching it, and so now I've got to start all over again, which means giving it a coat of undercoat, then silver again, and then of course the blue candy, which is fine, but it does mean I'm using up an awful lot of paint. I don't mind with the undercoat, I've got plenty of that, but I don't have much in the way of silver or the blue candy. So yeah, that's why it's really not a good idea to have problems at this point, and you end up using up a lot more paint than you wanted to. But anyway, there you go. That's now a quick coat of undercoat. Let it dry, and then we'll add on the silver, followed by the candy. And now here we are, another day and another coat of paint. So I've now covered the whole bodywork in this coarse metallic silver, and I've painted the side panels and the tail section and the tank with the Candy Apple Blue. Now of course I can't yet paint the front mudguard because the one I got was damaged, and a new one is on its way, and when it arrives I should have enough paint left to paint it with this base metallic silver. What I won't have is any paint left of the Candy Apple Blue. In fact, I've now run out, and that's not a surprise because I didn't expect to be able to do the whole bike on one can. Because with the candy apples you need to spray on layer after layer to build up the colour. So at the moment this tank isn't looking too good because it's only had 2 coats, and I think it needs at least 4 or 5 to get the colour that I want. And as I've already said, the tricky bit is to make sure all the different parts of the bike are coated in the exact same number of coats, otherwise the colours aren't quite the same. So I've now got the tail section and the side panels drying off in the garage, and now this tank is about to be moved in the garage to dry off. Now I have had a couple of panics because the wind picked up a little earlier on today, and I did get a little speck of dust land on the wet paint. And with candy apples, you know, it's a nightmare because you can't just let it dry and then remove it and go over it again, because if you did, it will show up the problem. Luckily I managed to remove that problem without causing any damage to the underlying paint, but that does bring up an ongoing issue I've got with spraying outside. Even on quite a nice day like this, the wind can pick up and blow in all kinds of rubbish on your paintwork. But something arrived today in the post which hopefully should help me with that problem, and that something is in here. And what we have is a small spray tent. Now for £20 I wasn't expecting too much, but having looked it over I'm actually quite impressed with the quality. So later on this week when my fresh paint of candy blue arrives, I'm going to set this up outside and we'll give it a go. And now here we are a few days later on a very, very windy day. So there's no painting going to happen out of my drive. But that's okay because I finally finished painting the side panels, the tank and this tail section. Or at least I thought I'd finished, because yesterday I finished painting this piece and then left it in the garage overnight. I've just come back in to move it somewhere warm and safe. And that's where I found a problem, because I've got these marks all over the paint here and here and here, which weren't there yesterday. Now it turns out what this is called blooming, paint blooming, and it's my fault because yesterday was a very wet day. It rained the whole day long apart from maybe from 3 o'clock. So about 3:30, when the rain stopped, I came back in here, got my gear out on the drive and finished off painting this tail section at last. And then brought it back in the garage and left it overnight. And I think the problem is, in fact I know the problem is, it was too damp. There was too much moisture in the air when I'm painting, and that moisture has got under the paint or in the paint as it's drying, and that leads to this sort of cloudy, white, milky sort of finish here, which is called blooming. So what to do about it? Well, if this was just an ordinary everyday standard paint, I just paint over it and all's good. But of course this is candy paint and I can't paint over it because that pale milky finish will come through the layers above it, so that's no good. So a bit of googling suggests that if you heat up the areas, I mean really heat it up with like a hot air gun or something like that, without actually burning the paint, that might work, that might lift off this milky finish. So I tried that, didn't work, made no difference at all. So my only option is once again to start again. So what I've got to do is rub it all down, make sure there's no problems in the paint, which actually there isn't. Undercoat it, use the silver, metallic coarse silver base coat, and then of course do many more coats of candy apple blue. And that's a problem because I've run out of paint again. So I did buy myself another can that arrived the other day, which allowed me to finish off painting the tank and this, and of course the side panels. Now the mudguard, the front mudguard's still not here, so I was hoping to sort of save a bit left in that one can to do the front mudguard, but there's no way I could do that because the paint soon gets used up. And you need to use so much of it because it's so sort of fine, it's so translucent, you've got to slowly build up the colours. I need an awful lot of coats. So this has probably had 5 or 6 coats already and now it's all gone wrong. So I've ordered, to get more paint, I've ordered 2 cans, which should be enough to do this and the front mudguard when it arrives next week. But yeah, it's a bit of a pain. Maybe I shouldn't have gone for a candy apple colour, but you know, I did, so now I've got to pay the price and got to start again, rub this down, as I say, undercoat, silver, and then yet more candy apple blue. But I've learned a lesson now, do not paint anything on a very damp day. Even if you're in a rush, just leave it until the air's a lot less full of moisture and dampness, and you should be good. So yeah, so there's a bit of blooming. I guess you can't really tell from over there, so I'll do a close-up with my phone camera and hopefully you can see what I'm seeing. Right, so I've got some blooming there, got some there, got some there, and it's quite bad here. Difficult for me to show you that in the reflections, but yeah, it's kind of there, if you can see that. So, not good, not good, we got to start again. And so with the tail section painted, these parts can now be left for 3 or 4 weeks for the paint to gas off. The front mudguard still not arrived, but that will also be painted when it appears. Finally, I've not yet mentioned graphics or pinstripes for the bodywork, and that's because at the moment I've not yet decided which way to go. So that's something I'll cover in a future video, and so for now, thanks for watching and cheers.